Like, the people who want to cancel over this shit will cry out that there's a productive conversation to be had here, but that conversation is legitimately impossible in the environment we exist in right now. I have tried for literal fucking months to have a productive conversation on what I consider to be like the hyper woke, like cancel culturally left, and they weren't there. They weren't there before I opened the fucking window. They know. I can smell my pheromones. Anyway, it's honestly, it's kind of like an abuse tactic if you think about it. Camera? Good? Yeah. It's kind of like an abuse tactic. What you do is, so the cancel culture process in and of itself is already incredibly unproductive. Like, if somebody, a public figure who advocates for your rights consistently, does something that you disagree with, and for that you would like, this person's a piece of shit, this person holds us back, like, that's already really bad. But even if you take a step back from that, the process itself, Contra isn't canceled, Lamau. Contrapoints has seen an enormous amount of controversy, largely from people who consistently misrepresent her positions. I don't think that's a controversial statement. Yeah, controversy. Yeah. But yeah, the yeah. But it's basically an abuse tactic. So you want to demonstrate sort of performative wokeness, so you dogpile with other people who are also very super cool and woke, somebody who does actual meaningful advocacy, and then when that person speaks up and says like, hey, I feel like I'm being misrepresented, you dogpile them for that. You gaslight them, essentially. I've experienced this all the time. People who don't want a productive conversation, who want to fucking attack you and then hide behind anonymity, will in their next breath stand up and say that you're like misdirecting by not dealing with this in like a perfectly cogent, productive, consistent way, which is impossible because the accusations that you face if you're a public figure aren't laid out to you in a bullet point list. They're thrown at you by 1,000 anonymous, faceless people who and they're impossible to respond to cogently. A response to one may fit into the narrative of another, and no matter what you do, it's going to end up reinforcing the idea that you're like desperately fighting. Just go with it. If you the only real way to like, I live in a quiet residential street. This is wild. I had the window closed for an hour and a half and there was no noise outside. But you're like, you're bombarded with accusations from tons and tons of people, and if you respond to it, if you think, hey, this is misrepresentative of what I'm saying, you lose, because the people who misrepresented you will disappear into the fucking gaslight zone and reemerge saying that actually, no, nobody's misrepresenting you. You just need to own up to what you've done, sweetie. There's no way to respond to that in a way that won't lead to these same people condemning you more for it. There's no response that deals with all of them. And if you don't respond to it, if you just ignore it, then it's like a tumor that grows on your back that they will slowly, they'll grow and grow, and eventually you'll have no choice but to address it. There really is like no fucking way to, dude, Contra deleted her Twitter, what the fuck? Wow, conspicuous user! Wow, really? Contra deleted her oh, boy. Jeez, oh, golly. I better update my, my stream title. Boy, golly gosh. Oh, a person with an incomprehensible name that I cannot read or pronounce. With the 400 rubles. Thank you. How much? $6. Thank you. I feel like this is kind of about the dirtbag left versus the woke left. This conflict has to be resolved if we want to combat the right effectively. Yeah, for sure. 100%. It's also a big difference in in like, this is fucking wild. Jesus Christ. I need to buy an air conditioner today. Anyway, it's like a really clear, why would we want to be dirtbags? A dirtbag leftist, it's just a broad term to refer to like kind of edgy leftists. Anyway, like, it's really reflective of the differences in political advocacy between the right and the left. I don't know if you guys noticed, but the right is really, really, really good at working together when it needs to. The broad base that like brought Trump into office was everything from evangelical Christians to like libertarians to literal Nazis. Like everyone on the right, even though these people have wildly different interests. Evangelical conservatives should have no interest in like philandering dipshitty like reality TV show stars, but they love misogyny and racism. Libertarians shouldn't have any interest in like protectionist like policies and like bigotry, but they sure do love favoritism towards businesses. Nazis also shouldn't be in favor of anyone who kowtows to like the neocon establishment and it's like pro-immigration sort of like Koch brothers Heritage Foundation agenda, but they sure do love being racist against non-white people. All the elements of the right are really, really capable of coming together to make the world a worse place. They're like really, really good at that. But then on the left, like we have shit like this. Contrapoints is literally like New York Times written about her. She's like the best fucking representative we got. One of them, the libertarian candidate, did shit on Trump. Granted, he was an idiot. Yeah, and then after the libertarian candidate dropped out of the primaries, the libertarians fell into line and started supporting Trump. But then you've got this shit, and like, it's fucking wild. This is what we have to deal with. Our best candidates are the people most capable of defending trans rights, of advocating for our political interests. The majority of the abuse they get is from the left, not the right. Guys, I get shit on by Nazis all the time, but the worst abuse that I get is from the left. I'm not kidding. This isn't me being a grift like Tim Pool, Dave Rubin. Hey, listen, as a leftist, I think the left has gone too far and that we need to start critiquing. No, none of that shit. But like, for real though, like day by day, I know what kind of shit I get in my inboxes. I know the emails I get. I know the DMs I get in Discord. I know the fucking Twitter ads I get. Sometimes I do a bad and I search my name on Twitter. I see what people say about me, and it's not the Nazis. I can deal with Nazis saying shit about me. I don't give a fuck about them. They're my enemy. Day by day, I deal with them. I make fun of them. That's the game. But my ability to do that, my ability to shit on Nazis, neocons, racists, sexist, conservatives, transphobes, my ability to meaningfully engage in leftist rhetoric is compromised substantially by the existence of people on the left who are more interested in enforcing a purity test on the people who do advocacy for them than they are in actually affecting discourse or improving the world. I mean, if you like really want to be like the wokest little like public figure, then go make a YouTube channel. Go make a YouTube channel. Go start a Discord group. Go start a politics server. Start advertising. Go put in work. Go do on-campus pamphleteering. Go do something. Start a club. Engage, because that's what the world needs. Right-leaning people get to do this shit all the time. Right-leaning people, their public advocacy is really, really solid. People like Steven Crowder, people like Ben Shapiro, they're getting funded fucking millions of dollars by like Koch brother, like dark money conservative welfare. You realize that, right? Do you know who's funding Contrapoints? Your YouTube views and Patreon subs are funding Contrapoints. If somebody like Steven Crowder gets abuse online, who the fuck cares? He's a media figure. He's corresponded with Fox News. He has media consultants. He can literally have people screen his inbox, his emails, his DMs. He has managers. He can work with people to flawlessly put out a content machine, a propaganda apparatus designed to convince millions of people that, I don't know, brown people are coming to steal their lunchbox. If Contrapoints get shit on 24/7? Nope, that's the tweet box. If Contrapoints get shit on 24/7 and this happens, that's that. That's this. This is what you get. This couldn't happen to Steven Crowder. Not only is there not a base of people on the right who would go to Steven Crowder and be like, Steven Crowder, I don't know, you've represented this one particular issue. I think you really need to reassess why you're a conservative. Steven Crowder, why haven't you publicly commented on the Jewish question? They don't do this. But even if they did do it, the way that media apparatus is designed is much more solid than what we have. Contrapoints is one of the biggest progressive-like figures, period. And her fucking Twitter account, which reached millions of people, is now deleted because of the abuse she got from people who thought she was being NB-phobic because she pointed out that people who are like binary passing trans have different interests than people who are not passing or non-binary trans and tend to be younger. That's a factual statement. That's not being weird about non-binary people. Learn some fucking nuance. The world doesn't revolve around you. There are other marginalized communities. And democracy works because people speak up about their own experiences. How would you feel if some fucking Aborigine black person or whatever in Canada, or Native American here in America, spoke up and they were like, hey, here are my experiences and here's what I want. And it was like slightly different than what like a Latin immigrant wanted. And you like silenced the fucking Native American, like, no, shut up. This is what we're going with. Shut the fuck up. What the fuck you doing? It's just like Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, Prager University. These are big channels with big outreach that affect a lot of fucking people. Like a lot of people. And they do it behind a media apparatus that is designed to insulate them from criticism, to fund them when they need funding. But even if they didn't have all of that, the conservatives aren't as toxic amongst each other as leftists are. They're really not. Certainly not to their big figures. Not in the same way that we are. The right doesn't have a sit down to talk about like problematic Crowder behavior because they're pretty undiscerning. We are discerning, and that's a good thing, but that discerning nature has to be funneled appropriately. It's not good enough just to be critical. You have to be practical too. And it wasn't very practical, relentlessly criticizing Contrapoints by constantly misrepresenting the shit she said. Aboriginal Australians are multiple broad groups that disagree a lot, but they still have to unite to combat white Australia. Yeah. You have to agree. To coalition build, you have to work with people with whom you have disagreements. You have to work with people that you have different material interests to. That's how coalitions are built. I'm reminded of the Black Panther Party, who would who said that we're not going to fight fire with fire. Well, this was Fred Hampton. We're not going to fight fire with fire. We're going to fight fire with water. We're not going to fight capitalism with black capitalism. We're going to fight capitalism with socialism. We're not going to fight racism with racism. We're going to fight racism with anti-racism. And they would go and they made an active effort to consolidate their political power, their base, their movement with Latin street gangs. In Illinois, I remember reading about this. They would literally like walk down the street and like meet with like crowds of like brown gang members, and they would talk, be like, hey, hey, you and I are different. We got a lot of shit we disagree about. We got different interests. We're a civil rights movement. You're literally a fucking criminal gang, but we got a shared interest, and that's against racism. You willing to work together? And they fucking did. They did. But we can't do that anymore. We can't do that anymore. The left doesn't function that way anymore, and it's a serious problem. I've tried to talk about it in the past, and I have done a bad job about it because I get really upset, because I care about this, because I actually give a shit about the left being made better and stronger about advocacy rather than it being made purer. I don't give a fuck how pure the left is. I am so radically far left compared to the political base of America. I'm not going to see a tenth of my dreams accomplished in my lifetime. If that. A tenth would be a dream of my goals. Purity is not what I need. I need more outreach. I need effectiveness. I need solidarity. I need coalition building. I need to be able to work with people. You need to be able to work with people. We need pragmatism. Every fucking time I hit the fucking button. Isn't Aborigines an imperialist term? Is Aborigines an imperialist term? If it is, then I haven't heard that. But if it is, then I'm sorry. I just hadn't heard that. Now chat's saying no. I don't care. The sentiment is expressed either way. This shit is just really frustrating for me. Not just because I like Contra. And hey, I like Contra. But not just because why is it when I hit that one button, it fucking does the thing? Shut up. There. Now we're on the other chat. And I do like Contra. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, she's like really hot stuff. But, it's like, who's enough, you know? Who meets that bar? If you're determined enough, you will be able to find fault, maybe even problematic behavior in every public figure you will ever encounter. There will never be a person that aligns perfectly with your understanding. If you get really into the weeds, I mean, sure, like healthcare, college, yeah, I mean, cool, we can agree on that. Get really into the weeds. Get into stuff like the minutia of terms of advocacy for political policy regarding like the legislation of stuff to amend like gender imbalances. Really dig in. You're never going to find someone who agrees with you on everything. You're never going to do it unless you're deliberately modeling your politics to be reflective of somebody that you idealize. In which case, learn to think for yourself. I don't know. There's nothing wrong with taking pointers from other people, but you should always be critical of the people that you follow. You're never going to be able to find someone who perfectly aligns with you. And the extent to which you're willing to cancel or criticize or dogpile people for disagreeing with you, even though you'll disagree with everyone in the end, is largely reflective of the social performative power that you get out of doing so. Can I tell you guys a story? Wait, here. Vosh, the problem is Contra keeps saying really bad shit about non-binary people and non-passing peeps instead, and of saying non-binary people are hurting trans rights isn't bad to you. Don't care about non-binary people. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. Okay, so this is pretty much what I mean right here. It's not because they're non-binary. It's because that the whole non-binary trans thing, like Contra so eloquently said, is more of a newer phenomena. That older trans people tend to be more stealth, more wanting to just be binary and pass. And then newer trans people, younger trans people, lean more into being non-binary, just generally speaking, and being more out and proud of their transness. Anyone who hasn't noticed this trend, I think you should pay more attention. I think this is pretty evident, really. I've certainly noticed it over the past decade. And that it is the latter crowd, the Zoomers. We can blame them for being Zoomers. Hey, listen. Hey, listen. We all do a little bit of Zoomer hate now and again. These Zoomers are engaging in the type of cancel culturally shit that does actively hurt trans rights. Contra deleting Twitter, that does hurt trans rights. People relentlessly purity testing people because they misrepresented statements in the past, that's hurting trans rights. This comment right here, hurting trans rights, because Contra's never said any really bad shit about non-binary and non-passing peeps at all. And then they say, I don't care about non-binary people, sorry, but it's the truth. So that's what we're getting right here. That's what we're getting from this one. So this is exactly the kind of statement that like kills the left right here. So you see right here? And I can just say like super simply, this is the kind of statement that destroys nuance, that moralizes and purity tests, that deliberately misrepresents the position of others for the purposes of enforcing a purity test. Yeah, this would be like if a civil rights activist was shutting down abolitionists during slavery. Yeah, can you imagine like the abolitionists during slavery who are like, hey, blacks should be free, but they're probably not as smart as whites, and like they couldn't get anything done because civil rights activists who thought everyone were equal kept telling them to shut the fuck up. Hey, did you know back in the days of slavery, abolitionists and people who believed blacks and whites were genuinely the same worked together. They worked together because the people who believed blacks and whites were truly the same were willing to work with people who didn't if it meant accomplishing the shared goal of freeing them from chattel slavery. I think that's a worthwhile compromise. For the meantime, then the civil rights activists can keep going, but in the meantime, let's accomplish one goal at a time, yes? But this is pretty much exactly what I mean when I talk about like problems in discourse. Stuff like this is really, really bad. And I don't think this is a particularly woke take anyway. Whatever the case is, let me share a quick story. Really, really quick. So I'm 25, cis white dude, whatever, take that for what you will. But my journey into like being a leftist has been a rocky one, you know. It's never perfect. I've had me some cringe moments along the way. Don't mind me just consolidating some things. Listen, who doesn't cringe now and again, okay? And there was a point in time during my cringe zone. Why does it do that? There was a point in time during my sort of cringe zone space that I was really, really interested in proving to other people how woke I was. I was really, really into that. I was really into that. Can we throw up a hand? Can we hypers in chat if there was ever a point in time when like be honest with yourself. You were really obsessed with proving to your social space how progressive you were. I'm seeing some folks. Yep. Now, I don't do that anymore. Nowadays, I just advocate for my politics and I do the best that I can, you know? My politics, I think, are like pretty woke as woke goes, but I'm not doing it to prove I'm woke. I'm doing it because I care about these issues. But I remember my woke lib shit was best exemplified in a particular interaction. Does anyone, hold on, sorry. Whatever the case may be, let's get back on track. I used to be part of a community called Shit Reddit Says on Reddit. It's super fucking lib shitty. It's like 100% like a circle jerk about how woke you are, okay? But whatever, at least they're leftists, or at least progressive. But anyway, I used to be part of that community. I've been a leftist. I've been a leftist for 6 years. I know many of you are younger than me. Oh no, what? What? What did you just throw in here?
Dayquil.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I'll take it in a second.
I forgot to give it to you earlier.
Thank you, my medicine baby.
Yeah.
I was in a community called SRS. Shit Reddit Says, pretty lib shitty, whatever, who cares? It was progressive. I'm growing up, okay? You know, I was like 19, 20. Anyway, there was an IRC channel associated with SRS. And I was there, and I was pretty low on the social totem pole because I was a cis white dude. I'm not trying to be like obnoxious or whatever, but like that's a thing, you know? Because I was like a cis white dude, so like there were people who just had a higher degree of like validity than me just by nature of their existence. And in that social space, I mean, not in general society, but in that social space. And I was really, really, really desperate to prove how woke I was. And I remember there was one time where someone in the IRC channel had typed out the term trans woman, not trans space woman, but trans woman. Somebody used the term trans woman. That's not trans space woman, that's trans woman no space. Now, much in the same way that a bunch of linguistic trends are kind of like fads in the leftist space, like, for example, the alphabet soup LGBTIAAQP, like that shit, plus much in the same way that for a while everyone was putting an asterisk after trans. It was trans asterisk, and that was like trans plus, but then people stopped doing it. For a while, it was really, really faux pas to do trans woman without a space, you know? Because the argument was trans is an adjective. Trans women are women. So if you say trans space woman, that is a woman who is trans, adjective. But if you say trans woman with no space, that is a noun, meaning that a trans woman is intrinsically different than a trans space woman, or than from a woman. Super meaningless. Totally irrelevant. Nobody cares. But they cared at the time. It's incredibly asinine, yes. But at the time, it was a big deal. Anyway, somebody had said trans woman, no space. So I was like, and this is, again, the super woke progressive space. So I was like, hey, don't use that, say trans space woman. And nobody replied to me. The IRC channel scrolling past, you see in the little text bar, Irish Laddie says, you see it scrolling past, hey, don't use trans no space woman. Scrolling past, no one noticed it. So I was like, okay, I'll do it again. No one cared. And then the person who I was calling out did it again. Trans no space woman. And so I did it again. Hey, you shouldn't do this. And then at some point, someone was like, dude, Irish Laddie, that's a trans woman. And that's when I stopped trying to do that. The funny thing is, if I had typed out trans no space woman, they would have dogpiled me for it because I was a cis dude. But that's when I stopped trying to do that. But why was I doing that? Like, why was I doing that? Why did I 3 times? Why did I post that? The reason why I did that was because the social capital in that space was being woker than other people. Every new leftist has experienced this to some extent. The introduction into a social space where the commodity is how woke you are, or how familiar you are with theory, or other things like that. And that's like the commodity that you trade in. And that desire for woke clout drove me to post cringe. The problem is, if you are in a community that rewards that behavior and perpetuates it in like an echo chamber, you end up with a group of people who are insufferable and very harmful to discourse because they obliterate nuance. They're obnoxious. They aren't actually concerned with improving the world or making it a better place. They're concerned with other people knowing how much they want to improve the world and make it a better place. They don't care about practicality or rhetoric or optics or presentability or any of the things that matter when it comes to the delivery of a position. All they actually care about is the reinforcement of their position within a social space. And that's why the accounts that tend to do this shit on Twitter over and over and over again, that is why they are so habitually obsessed with their identity, with that kind of behavior. If you look through their feeds on Twitter, and I admit I'm generalizing a bit here, but if you look through their feeds on Twitter of the kind of people who woke scold others, who cancel Contra all the time, you'll find like that's all they do. Like, that's it. When it comes to political engagement, that's pretty much all they do. Scold other people for not doing better. They don't make big positive posts about the need to do this, or they don't make big posts about defending that. You know what they never do? They never attack right-leaning people. Because there's no social clout to be gained in a woke space from being woker than a bigot. That's a pretty low bar. You don't get points for that. They never, ever, ever go after the reactionaries. But they will cancel the hell out of left-leaning people. And that's their entire contribution to the political space. That's it. That's all they do. It is virtue signaling. There are a lot of terms that reactionaries coined that we kind of distanced ourselves from because they were mostly, misused by reactionaries. Reactionaries will say it's virtue signaling to say, like, you don't hate black people, like, the fuck them. But when all you do is signal to others that you're, like, really in with the most fucking woke, like, progressive political positions, but you don't do anything with it, you just kind of show off, and you actively harm discourse by hurting people who are meaningfully pushing for your interests, kind of, it's a little virtue signal, Yeah, reactionaries virtue signal all the time, 100%. I think you can call them out for that, but this is virtue signaling. Anyway, Mythaldo, I just said virtue signaling. Oh yeah, like invented, like 100%, yeah. I agree, Ellie Rogers 12. The woker than thou shit just has to end. We have to make positive steps forward. Guys, the leftist space is literally running on donations and fucking ad revenue. That's what we run on. The right is running on donations from billionaires and collaboration with the fucking Republican convention. That's where they get their money from. There is much more money, so much more money in what they do than what we do. If we want to win, we have to stand together. Some people don't want to stand together, and it's not people like me. I build my platform in solidarity. I'll work with anyone if we have shared interests. But I wonder, do I have shared interests with somebody whose only political contributions are attacking the left from a position of hyper-performative wokeness that is so beyond the, like, meaningful discourse, that is so intent on misrepresenting their allies that it almost comes off as like a bad faith attack from a fucking like deep state plant? Sometimes I read these people's Twitters and I wonder if they're like reactionaries that are like false flagging. I can't tell. I don't think they are, but like I can't tell. This is the consequence of a lot of young people getting into the left. This is the consequence, really, of 2016. And that is one of the things that I do. I want to build a political space where that wokeness isn't rewarded. That's my community. If you want to be fucking cool in my community, you know what you have to be? You have to be fucking cool. You have to be able to do the fucking kick flips with the little skateboard. That's what you have to be able to do to be cool in my community. The tech deck, that's what they're called. That's what you got to be cool to do in my community. I see my Discord, I see my tweets. Nobody in my community is like actively like purging other people or like trying to impugn them for not being perfect. Nobody's doing that. And that's good, because my community, at least I try to have my community, be oriented around efficacy, shared political goals, shared values, effectiveness, delivery, rhetoric, making the world a better place, not, mind you, looking as though you're making the world a better place. I want to show people it's possible to be cool in a leftist space without having that be attached to a pathological desire for woke clout. That's what I try to do. That's what I want. So hopefully we can build that, because right now, the way the space exists, it's untenable. This is not workable. We can't do this. This is not gonna fly. It's not. It's not. This is not workable. where every leftist content creator is fighting a fucking two-phase war between the entire right-leaning establishment and the left-leaning people who are constantly fucking scrutinizing them for even the slightest signs of impropriety or misbehavior, to immediately jump on them screaming, "You're bad for us, you're bad for our movement, you're bad for our community, we don't want to be represented by someone like you, someone who's only more leftist and progressive than 99.98% of the population," and then we tear them and they lose Patreon subs, or they delete their Twitter account, or they get dogpiled on Twitter, and then you hopefully wait for someone even more careful and sensitive and incapable of appealing to the sensibilities of most people to arise, and then you support them until they do something, which inevitably everyone will. If you create a political space in which it is statistically improbable that someone who advocates for your interests effectively will be accepted within that space, you've created a toxic space. And I just want us to do better. I just want us to do better. How would you differentiate performative wokeness from legitimate criticisms of rhetoric that harms group one is advocating for? I don't know. I mean, how would you differentiate between like being upset with your partner and like beating the shit out of them and then like crying and saying you'll kill yourselves if they leave them? Like, just like, the way the left works right now is fucking abusive, dude. There's something really fucked up when someone like me, who goes out of his way to poke Nazi hornets' nests, gets more shit on by the left than he does the right, even though I am radically farther left than most left-leaning content producers. I guarantee you that in terms of actual prescriptive positions, I'm farther left than most people on BreadTube, and probably more effective at arguing the positions that they advocate for. Not all of them, but a lot of them, for sure. And the fact that I now get more shit from the left, there's something really fucking wrong. And I think we need to take a step away from the position we're in now before we can even think to like course correct and go like, okay, we can be critical of this. What's the word? Do you think like Natalie is going to make a video like, actually, non-binary people are dumb? The black camera slowly opens. Natalie, wearing a codpiece and 2 pasties and nothing else, standing on top of a couch made from the corpse of a rhino. Non-binary people fucking suck. Title card. No. Let's calm it down.